no nsem bebre aba betodwa busumi so e bomu ne ehwe ani mu se ken for riata ba beka yensa amanfo so obeba bi mu so omma ebu so wamba de ese ebomodian na ye paint up no okoso ano oba so far political view no ye din komache dia na osusu se abetodwa efa aban ya wo ya osusu se weni agye ho ana osusu se bia ebi ho no a enhyeda nkoyi ye nin komo.
Yeah, Dr. Ren, the dikaima menchia na menchia London ni UK for mutie awiai na watie fo nyina ehia ya check akra adwuma no sa na tie oba toda na akwaje wa home kakra and I think it's good we are back once again to do what we do best because the nyina ya hwe ne se Ghana aye ya man no ye betimi pushing it to a pedestal ebe create opportunities and incentive for obia irrespective of your background, creed, religious affiliation, wherever you come from, political party, not able to empower your as human being because that is the purpose and the sole reason. Yankopon the boy so. And I think that is what we are committed to doing. Ghana for post got to about 2024 change buying. And ohe mframa na ebo before elections na niema na akoso okroma in the last 8 years some of us were not happy. The political trend niema, the economy of the country now at the time no kwano na give you a clear short indication that things were really terrible. Corruption na a one time and widespread. Ghana for wanted a change. Lo and behold, Yakotuaba and John Mahama government is secure overwhelming victory. And I think the first commitment had to do with the 120-day social contract on the Ghana for Isane. Dr. Ran, I think Mahama Mamuni around the 120-day contract in the year. I think he really did well, to be very honest with you, because major promises and some groundbreaking initiatives are say you can say about 90 to 95% of it, and that science actually say something has been done about it. And Sanema will see a name na eda Ghana for this one or for instance, many can ora you want some how corruption by a widespread na Ghana for expect to say a bind by a very frontal now I'll go after nipa omobi o man sika ba mani nipa binum kasa obi ba ka che say John Mahama ema dollar ba 1 cedi na osi abrosan ma Ghana ni bia na the $1 to $100 million to obi account na wanche nkofo no mo wi sika na to them aban na nyehwe that a chrew how a Ghana for any abrese they want accountability for individuals amodo omosa bo o man sikam enti ora no buy and you saw the kind of offense saying public we are enya na man for ehwe animu and along the line you see the wheels of justice grind slowly the rate at which an man for person near Mexico is not happening that way. But I think that in recent times Attorney General a number of press conferences I will give you the public briefings. One of the major issues that coming up an issue breaking a lot of shockwaves within the media space because got to abandon scandals and not jikrom half now do issue no nka. But I told that the national service scandal pop up and several other ways. We've been given indications a buying a trying and some of the dockets are ready. Now I know you the sky train once up to now. I'm trying to situate it in the context of reason. I'm unable to find it. Because Dr. Ren, Ghana yeti train I from Krani Nibi. Now Kwabrane professor Tanase at the paper secret as say young trainer and I'm not sure say any reasonable mind will agree to some of these things. Sometimes I damo say you said nipa will sit down and say young trainer and when trainer namasas so kura win be and I'm pack ya tam Ghana for $2 million a tam call on my Mauritius na the corner mo sky train no mu be that a hona ya say ya kwakwa sky train ya ne buy ho so no na sa $2 million ne da quarter shares ewo company $100,000 and editor your friends shares and a 1.9 billion no yeah the premium for shareholders and no obetimi de won sa fa akira kwakoyi sa sika no sky train no feasibility study till date enye hu bi. So some of these cases, you expect to say aban beye bibia fa because over the years ade ba ko Ghana for ebehu ye ne say kwan a ya fa so aye politics wo kroma no amanfo free say ye NDC na MPP na aka bom no mafa nyansa kwan so no mu wi oman ne sika enti people were rating the NDC and the MPP the same thing. So say John Mahama anya kwanya to be president or kwanya to change this narrative. Now on Kanchira Ghana for say the government, the NDC government, is different from the MPP government, and doing so, the only way I'll bet me actually say and say nipo mo wi o man sika no ono mo begi. Ebasa you send message to our own appointees say in the future we should also be minded say aban bi obeba bia so no obedi say one tenase ya. So I think so far so good in that particular regard, the fight against corruption and as a forum. And Dr. Ryan again, I never quite bear topical issue, the Chief Justice issue, and so may not make us answer way because may not have a conversation at and there has been a number of development also. Yeah. Pachotimenka.
Kapa, you didn't come out yeah, Bobosu.
Yeah, so prior to the elections, I never quite a topical issue, El Chrome has to do with the judiciary. The BIA may not have a conversation, said trust and confidence within the judiciary, shaky. Wasn't there. People didn't trust your judiciary, because of some happenings in the recent decisions. And there's some decision by the president to pack the court with friendly individuals and allies. Dampe Ghana for your spirit in terms of justice delivery in this country. It got to a time, Supreme Court had the highest pinnacle of judicial power, Iowa Ghana, the ruling Babon Tia, na Ghana for us subjected the ruling to public mortification and public ridicule because we find a basic element of logic, reasoning, and common sense. So some of the major rulings from the Supreme Court were deemed very stupid and very foolish by Ghanaians on various social media platforms. What's a unanimous 11 as a form? Mano threaten our coercion, our democratic foundation, and as a form. So I buy no make a promise. One of the key things is to sanitize the judiciary. Ghana for a number of posts around here on various social media platforms and naturally clearly say I'm for need trust our judiciary. But President Mahama enya kwenya say oh ye Chief Justice free. Let me make that particular point clear. The president doesn't have the power. Constitution no a man who to me. But that to me constitution is the magana ni free side ya call wrong no the other say on petition fan president. It is at that point that the president power of removal be activated when a Ghanaian citizen are writing petition. So in the absence of no petition, the president cannot remove the Chief Justice. Let me make that point. Until somebody, about 3 or 4 people, extra petition the command president enumerating reasons why as a Omuyi Chief Justice through. And I think the Council of State International, they find sense and reason in this. You're trying to say petition. They established the premier facie. Establishing the baseline ground rules. Article 146 downwards. Actually, the processes that has to be followed through. And after establishing that, President has set up a committee to engage the Chief Justice 19 and 17, which is a process ongoing now. There were a lot of political noise around it. MPP did demonstration. But the fact is, demonstration a legitimate political tool. Obia bet me use they register the protest. I have been an advocate. He says so person demonstration allow them to do because these are legitimate constitutional tools. Among for bet me register pleasure and displeasure and as a forum. But ukobisa MPP for no more demonstration say ade na John Mahama ya eti amra enunti mo free some demonstration ya obia ni ho wetimi lay the reasons on any solid or anything of value apart from speculations, emotions and those kind of stuff. Enunti no ama sa agitation no and get any grounds because if you are unable to build your point based on factual evidence, such as indeed President there has been certain breaches and infractions via Kosovo baby. Ghana Bar Association Baba Firm Begun anima say and also raise this emotional argument without being able to raise any fundamental legal error be a president that committee. Am I and so I'm for ridicule or more my and any in our category. And this annual money in a name for I committee na say the Chief Justice is meeting them, going through the process. At the end of the day, the committee need to find them back. Not recommendation on be making this was a president mama me no kwa be mana ko say o man tena by Ghana for it in China the ye say judiciary now over the years trust and confidence are free mono once again you betimi restore na Ghana for who say yes institutions are working again because in the last 8 years ade ba ko e be very very clear and Akufo-Addo government and say state institutions were sabotaged. Some were cowed into intimidation and subjugation. Some were being used as political tool to further the cause of the president of the day. Institutions like the court are an avenue for arbitration, a fight for Ghana for it got to a point now it was being used to serve a certain narrow parochial interest. As some court you can predict. There were a lot of people me catch us say onya sama. They prefer so about than so about court because or secure the court up on Chiako bribe judge or hefa and a whole lot of cynicisms and speculations going on. And a high profile political cases at court. You saw how some of the ruling in as for course so engender threat. So one of the ways I rebuild this country and say these institutions will be brought back. And the mother of all cases are the economy of this country, Dr. Ren.
Yɛbɛkɔ economy no ho na ɛnɛ oka Chief Justice yi ɛna ɛyɛ former minister for information ɛde abɛtugya ɛyɛ Fatimatu Abubakar was say the president ɛyɛ Chief Justice yi obisa sɛ on the suspension of Chief Justice no was say ɛnɛ obi nso be impeach president and let me quote her. President Mahama, if what he is doing is done to him, would he be happy? Or we sit in this country and pretend we don't know that the president's spouse uses state funds to purchase flight tickets for her travels? Today, I ask, should someone file impeachment proceedings against the president because the first lady, whom we have neither voted for nor appointed to any official position, is using state funds to purchase flight tickets for her travels? Yet, when this happens, it is only the young NDC members who raise concerns about her flying business class. We former minister for information.
And I think that this is a childish, emotional crier. As Obia waiting by Deputy Minister of Information, you know, when something like this is coming from her, then you can understand how low politics and governance has become in this country. Because a mind that is speaking like this, no, it's not mature to be a Deputy Minister of State. Very, very childish and very infantile. Because the central argument to Asema can say, and yes, my Maria Koto flight ticket at the money kuno. And again, or say somebody, if they impeach President Mahama, what stop her from impeaching President Mahama? So free say you talk plane ticket. At the first lady will be on to Abamano. Akufo-Addo time, no, they should go and check over the years, you know, whether Vice President Yiri Tukwanya state in a purchasing a flight ticket, and some of these things are childish. The fact is, one of the petitioner, alleged leak petitioner, Babontina, Dr. Ren, you see. There are fundamental issues of law and actors. You see, law now you can people who administer justice, should be seen to be exhibiting high moral standard, high ethical standard, and the dictate of written laws, you cannot depart from it as an administrative head of the judiciary and expect other people to do same. You understand?
I always say, when laws are created, the conscience of a man or a conscience of a woman must come alive.
Exactly. My main fact, this take it, say, Minya, as I'm entering. Ya kasa say, Obi a Supreme Court judge na o to Kwanyako, America, Kwaya, Juma. The state, ever for everything, or decided so the new Kunun and Mabakwa. state need other option than to finance all these things. But we are talking about a judge on vacation. What decided is a private visit and I said private tour somewhere. And no, state, I'm making provision for that. You say, wow, we call as a chief justice, and I'm saying private, but still we are your chief justice. You bet you come. Don't worry. But I'm saying still we are your chief justice in security are very paramount to us because we can't say koto our land in abontin so say ya Ghana din you be first. And it's a wo kwasa kwantu na ye betu ya wode na fa soja ni na say police ni or security ka wo ho na say wonam landing abonten so na say obi atusha wo so a police ni no at least obetimi age wo kakra ansa na landing police for duru ho abebo ho ban. It makes sense. But your chief justice or no only nyansa ten you biano decided say no mem police ni no bedi machi akwa na security no bedi machi akwa no me mana tena fie na me de me ba be si na nan eti onam landing abonten so na se obi to sha no so a ne ba no mom na ba security na entitlement aye per diem police ni o memfa make say ono ohiani police ni bi ono so e bi akra ontu kwan da obenya akwanya tu kwan akọbọ mframa na ono so age per diem bi no wo greed ntino waje de ama oba sa oba momunko and then she was paying per diem flight ticket to man ba no hu ye over 1 billion 100,000 and over your friend saying plane ticket menim America from how to US
adena ne ba no oye Jackie Chan a wo bo ne ma me ne ho ban ana
menim say omo charter plane no the whole business class in akura I don't know. You understand? These are serious ethical questions. Man for raise. So it is not about Nasa Chief Justice so bench so all the time they travel with their spouses. Nobody has raised concern. And again, for the Auditor General to go and audit the judiciary, now open raise those issues. You should know, say fundamentally something is wrong because the Auditor General is the Auditor General of Ghana. They audit across board. So whenever they write something like this, now it means that thing is an infraction. So any infraction mean an infraction na create an infraction that has been identified by the Auditor General. So when people are doing the conversation, they jump over this point. So it was an infraction that occasioned, but was identified in the audit report by the Auditor General. Ena Ghana ni akwa kohu ena odia file petition, so you can't begrudge him. So it is not John Mahama that is removing the chief justice. That is the point I'm making because so in this case Amakatra say the president does not have power to remove chief justice. His power of removal only becomes activated when a citizen writes a petition and is submitted to him to be forwarded to the Council of State. These are basic legal understanding by people who claim to have studied law to whatever level, eventually do emotional, illogical, unreasonable, emotional analysis in this regard, just to make it look like John Mahama Naba na O2 Chief Justice. And you see, one point that Debia Mekane said, Dr. Ren, said me take you back. Debia me make argument. I make this point. My main I friend Loretta Lamte and Professor Mills appointed in 20 to Professor Mills term no. Another umpire and one Richard Niyama and the MPP now Mahama na president. They wrote a petition to President Mahama say my man hand down our Airport Hill. She was paying dollars on daily basis. Enti President Mahama remove no. A committee was set up just like this. And eventually, when the committee finished their work and submitted the report to President Mahama, the woman was removed. Even though she was appointed by Professor Mills and the NDC, John Mahama removed the woman. And if you had trust in John Mahama at the time, MPP from the petition come and manage it to and act on that. Now, police officer and other individuals, you cannot say some NDC for these are Ghanaians. The case between police and the chief justice, it's an issue that has been in the news for since 2018. So who go online now, but encounter between the woman and the police officer now. You see that it happened somewhere 2018, sa issue akoshraji nyina ba. A long-standing issue, it has nothing to do with John Mahama and several other issues are popping up. And recent one, the Abibum, a Chief Justice, I award the contract. Judiciary award the contract to Chief Justice on one Casanaba. Restrictive tendering. And some no, Casa Kuma, and Americano. Now I was advising, say, Chief Justice could have resigned to avoid all this embarrassment. Because some of the issues now are popping up in the petition, you know. Say about your public way, and papa mano. And Mguasia. A child said people are ready to be more man. When they assume power, they think that they are all powerful, they are beyond reproach. Because under what? And now, Obiya Chief Justice better say any kind amount or outfit, you know. Assign I award the contract to one Casa or Baba. The mode of receiving that way, you know. A true restrictive tendering. Restrictive tendering, just say, ya mo biya ho kwan, Dr. Ran on kwan ya de kwanya na ma. Enti, your friend say apply, na yam fa ma. Conflict of interest. A judge must exhibit a high standard of ethics, no conflict of. So all these things, you know, are subject to obviously a legal interpretation in as a forum. And it's not as if the woman is not being given a fair hearing. She will appear before a committee with her lawyers or herself, or her herself and her lawyers. Charges in India. Will answer, the committee will ask their questions. The lawyers of these individuals also make their point. At the end of the day, committee, you know, we can trust them. These are learned individuals. I'm also making a judgment based on that. At the end of the day, we move from there. If the committee can say, oh, Adiana, Yadia to my menasono, and Yano Mongo sem Yamontungu, na onkwaya na juma, me ameti have any issue. But we cannot preempt the work of the committee na Yambongu because Mahama na waba and a wafobi. As I could for to miss Sake judges money because Omokojia demudia. That's a similar issue is playing out. Why John Mahama can do the same thing? Because don't forget to announce a petition, President Akufo-Addo, about Justice Derry and Co. For Omokwaji Jem for Nchenden as a phenomenon. As some no, don't forget the president suspended them even before and sana issue no. Your first year conclude, and eventually when the report came out, Akufo-Addo sacked the 4 judges. So it's not as if they
it's not as if say being see that, but for purpose of education, no, send ye wood church, no. Menkaiti for say a year Ivan Che Innocent and you know a Komo Rainbow Radio so 92.4 FM. My memo the current a year